Daniel Harris was used to working in the quiet hours. At 38, he'd been the night janitor at Westbridge Academy, a prestigious private school in Connecticut, for 3 years. It wasn't glamorous, mopping floors, emptying trash cans, scrubbing desks, but pay enough to keep a roof over his and his sons' heads. His 10-year-old, Ethan, was his world, and every late shift was for him, to cover rent, school supplies, an occasional treat like pizza night. Daniel didn't complain. He'd learned long ago that life didn't owe him anything. That evening, he was finishing his rounds in the elementary wing when he heard it, a soft, hiccuping sob coming from the library. It was past 8 p.m., long after the students and staff had gone home. Daniel paused, his mop handle still in hand, listening. The sound came again, small but unmistakable. He set the mop against the wall and followed the noise. In the library, tucked between 2 bookshelves, he found a little girl, no older than 6, curled up with her knees to her chest. Her dark hair was messy, her school uniform wrinkled, and her face was streaked with tears. Daniel recognized her vaguely. Lila, one of the first graders, always dropped off early and picked up late. He'd seen her sitting alone in the cafeteria more than once, her eyes fixed on a tablet, while other kids chatted around her. "Hey, Lila," Daniel said softly, crouching to her level. "What's going on? You okay?" Lila looked up, her eyes wide and wary. She didn't answer, just hugged her knees tighter. Daniel noticed her backpack was open, paper spilling out, one of them crumpled with red, scrawled on it. He didn't push her to talk. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bottle of bubbles, a leftover from Ethan's birthday party that he carried for moments like this. Kids were easier to reach when you gave them something to focus on. "Want to see something cool?" he asked, unscrewing the cap. He dipped the wand and blew a stream of bubbles into the air. They floated, catching the dim light, and Lila's eyes followed them, her sobs slowing. "Bet you can pop one before it hits the ground," he said, blowing another. Lila hesitated, then reached out, her small hand swiping at a bubble. It burst, and she gave a tiny giggle, then clapped a hand over her mouth as if surprised by her own reaction. Daniel smiled. "See? You're a pro already." Meanwhile, across the room, Claire Wentworth stood in the doorway, unnoticed. At 35, she was the CEO of Wentworth Tech, a company valued at $2.4 billion, known for its cutting-edge software solutions. She was also Lila's mother, though she rarely had time to act like it. Tonight, she'd come to pick Lila up after a parent-teacher conference ran late, only to find her daughter missing from the after-school program. A teacher had pointed her toward the library, and now, watching the stranger, a janitor, by his uniform, comfort her daughter, Claire felt a pang she couldn't name. Claire wasn't used to feeling out of her depth. She'd built her company from a startup in her dorm room to a global powerhouse, navigating boardrooms and investor meetings with ease. But motherhood? That was harder. Lila had always been quiet, sensitive, struggling to fit in at a school full of overachievers. Claire tried to be there, but her schedule was relentless. Flights to Singapore, meetings in London, endless emails. Lila's father, Claire's ex, was out of the picture, living in California with his new family. Claire did her best, but she knew it wasn't enough. Daniel blew another stream of bubbles, and Lila laughed again, this time louder. "Can I try?" she asked, her voice small but curious. "Sure thing," Daniel said, handing her the wand. "Just dip it in not too deep and blow gently. Like this." He demonstrated, and Lila mimicked him, her first attempt producing a wobbly bubble that popped almost instantly. She laughed, and Daniel clapped. "That's it. You're a natural." Claire watched, her throat tight. She'd never seen Lila open up like this with anyone, not even her. The teacher had mentioned Lila's struggles, low grades, troublemaking friends, acting out in class. Claire had been defensive, insisting Lila just needed time. But seeing her now, so easily comforted by a stranger, made Claire question everything. Daniel didn't know Claire was there. He was focused on Lila, who was now blowing bubbles with more confidence. "You know," he said, sitting back on his heels, When my son, Ethan, gets upset, he likes to tell me one thing that made him happy that day. Helps him feel better. Want to try?" Lila thought for a moment, her brow furrowed. "I got to pet a dog at recess," she said finally. "It was Fluffy." "That's a good one," Daniel said, nodding seriously. "Fluffy dogs are the best." "What else?" Lila hesitated, then pointed at the bubbles. "This." Daniel grinned. "Bubbles are pretty great." "Huh?" "You keep that bottle. Practice for next time." Claire stepped back, her heels clicking softly on the tile. She didn't want to interrupt. Not yet. She felt like an intruder in her own daughter's moment. Instead, she slipped out of the library and waited in the hallway, her mind racing. Who was this man? Why was he so good with Lila? And why did it hurt so much to see her daughter smile for someone else? Daniel stayed with Lila for another 10 minutes, let her talk about the dog, her favorite cartoon, anything that came to mind. When she seemed calmer, he stood. "You want to head back to the after-school room? I bet your mom's looking for you." Lila nodded, clutching the bubble bottle. Daniel walked her down the hall, unaware that Claire was following at a distance. When they reached the after-school room, Claire stepped forward. "Lila," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I'm here." Lila ran to her, and Claire knelt, hugging her tightly. She looked up at Daniel, who was already turning to leave. "Wait," she said. "Thank you for helping her." Daniel shrugged, a little embarrassed. "No problem. She's a good kid." Claire wanted to say more, but the words caught in her throat. Daniel nodded and walked back to his mop, his shift far from over. Claire took Lila's hand and led her to the car, her mind still on the janitor. She didn't know his name, but she intended to find out. The next day, Claire called the school's principal, Ms. Hargrove, and asked about the night janitor. "His name's Daniel Harris," Ms. Hargrove said. "He's reliable, keeps to himself. Single dad, I think." "Why?" Claire didn't explain. Instead, she asked for his contact information, citing a need to thank him personally. Ms. Hargrove hesitated, but gave her his work email. Claire sat at her desk, staring at the blank email draft. What could she say? "Thank you for being better with my daughter than I am." She closed her laptop and decided to go back to the school that evening. Daniel was surprised to see Claire waiting for him in the parking lot after his shift. She introduced herself, and he recognized her immediately, not from her face, but from the way Lila had clung to her the night before. "Ms. Wentworth," he said, nodding. "Everything okay with Lila?" "She's fine," Claire said, then paused. "I saw what you did last night, with the bubbles. I've never seen her light up like that." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, unsure how to respond. "Just trying to help. Kids get upset sometimes. I've got one myself, so I get it." Claire nodded, studying him. He was unassuming, his work boots scuffed, his hands calloused. But there was a steadiness to him, a kindness she hadn't expected. "I'd like to thank you properly," she said. "Maybe dinner? For you and your son." Daniel blinked, caught off guard. "That's nice of you, but you don't owe me anything." "I insist," Claire said, her tone firm but warm. "Lila talks about those bubbles nonstop now." Daniel hesitated, then agreed. A week later, he and Ethan met Claire and Lila at a family-friendly restaurant in town. Ethan and Lila hit it off, bonding over a shared love of video games, while Claire and Daniel talked. She learned about his life, raising Ethan alone after his wife passed 5 years ago, juggling night shifts and parent-teacher conferences. He learned about her, building a company from nothing, the pressure of being a single mom in a world that demanded her attention 24/7. The dinner became a regular thing, once a month, then once a week. Claire found herself looking forward to it, not just for Lila's sake, but for her own. Daniel was different from the people in her world. No agendas, no pretenses. He listened when she talked, really listened, and he never judged her for the time she couldn't give Lila. One night, after the kids were engrossed in a board game, Claire told Daniel about her guilt. "I'm not there for her the way I should be," she admitted. "I see you with Ethan, and you make it look so easy." Daniel shook his head. "It's not easy. I mess up all the time. But kids don't need perfect. They just need you to show up. Claire took his words to heart. She started carving out more time for Lila, even if it was just reading together before bed. She noticed Lila's grades improving, her shyness fading. And she noticed something else. Her own feelings for Daniel were growing. It wasn't just gratitude anymore. It was respect, admiration, maybe something more. Daniel felt it too, but he was cautious. Claire's world was so different from his. Private jets, penthouse offices, a life he couldn't imagine. He didn't want to be a charity case, someone she felt obligated to help. But when she invited him and Ethan to a company picnic, he saw her in her element, commanding a room yet still making time to play tag with Lila. He realized she wasn't just a CEO. She was a person like him, trying to do her best. Months later, Claire made a decision. She offered Daniel a job at Wentworth Tech, not as a janitor, but as a logistics manager, leveraging his Army experience. "You're good with people," she said, "and we need someone like you." Daniel was hesitant. "I don't want a handout," he said. "It's not," Claire insisted. "It's a job. You'd earn it." He took it, and it changed everything. The new role meant better hours, more time with Ethan. It also meant more time with Claire and Lila. The four of them started feeling like a unit, not a family yet, but something close. Claire funded a scholarship in Daniel's name at Westbridge for kids whose parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. Daniel, in turn, taught Lila how to blow the perfect bubble, and Claire how to slow down, even for a moment. Looking back, Daniel realized that night in the library wasn't just about helping a crying girl. It was about two people, both struggling in their own ways, finding each other when they least expected it. Claire, for her part, knew she'd never forget the sight of those bubbles, floating in the dim light, and the man who'd shown her what really mattered.